A large group of ISIL terrorists have launched an offensive against a key government-held airbase in the Syrian province of Deir ez-Zor. It's believed the Islamists came from the Iraqi city of Mosul, where they had been fighting against a US-led operation there. Lizzie Phelan has the details.
They succeeded in cutting that last government-held patch of the city in two and severed the military airbase from the rest of the city. Now, that airbase is the only way that the Syrian government can deliver supplies to those trapped civilians and pro-government forces there. Now, helicopters are unable to land in that airbase, unable to deliver food and medical supplies to civilians, and also unable to deliver reinforcements to pro-government forces there. So if the soldiers that are currently there don't manage to hold out, then ISIS will be able to overrun the city, and there's great fears that they will commit atrocities against the civilians that have been living under government rule there and against pro-government forces. Now, my team and I have had some contact with civilians and some pro-government fighters in Deir ez-Zor, and the conditions that they describe to us living under siege, they're extremely tough. They have very little food, many people surviving on canned food, a complete lack of fuel. There's only a handful of cars able to continue operating in Deir ez-Zor. Of course, now that's going to become even more difficult. Most people use bicycles, and of course they're living under constant ISIS shelling, and that shelling has been particularly bad over the last few days. This is the fiercest ISIS offensive that we've seen.
The city of Deir ez-Zor has been under siege by ISIL since July 2014, and in the last few days, fighting has intensified. In December, the Russian Defense Ministry said that more than 5,000 terrorists had moved to Syria's Raqqa and Deir ez-Zor from Iraq's Mosul. The Syrian army has responded by targeting militants in nearby territories. Syria commentator Danny Mackey thinks there's a direct link between what's happening in Mosul and the situation in Deir ez-Zor.
What has been very telling in the recent ISIS Deir ez-Zor offensive is that many of the groups which have led the actual offensive have been special groups of elite ISIS fighters who have come from Nineveh province in Iraq. So you can see the direct link now between what's happening in Mosul and the intense pressure which ISIS is under, and that's translating onto the battlefield in Syria, where ISIS is now attempting to gather as many men as possible and take as many areas in Syria, whilst it gradually begins to decrease its presence within Iraq. There is no doubt that the global coalition led by the United States of America has watched as these groups and these convoys of ISIS fighters have left Mosul all the way to Deir ez-Zor, travelling hundreds of kilometres under the watchful eye of the global coalition, which is meant to be fighting ISIS. Now, it's clear that the US has a policy standards in addition to the fact that it's not genuine in its fight against ISIS.